All right, thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Welcome to the Amherst Planning Board meeting of December 21st, 2022. My name is Doug Marshall, and as the chair of the Amherst Planning Board, I am calling this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and is available live stream via Amherst Media. Minutes are being taken. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021 and extended by Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, and extended again by the state legislature on July 16th, 2022. This planning board meeting, including public hearings, will be conducted via remote means using the Zoom platform. The Zoom meeting link is available on the meeting agenda posted on the town website's calendar listing for this meeting, or go to the planning board webpage and click on the most recent agenda, which lists the Zoom link at the top of the page. No in-person attendance of the public is permitted. However, every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the meeting in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so for reasons of economic hardship or despite best efforts, we will post an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the Town of Amherst website. Board members, I will take a roll call. When I call your name, unmute yourself, answer affirmatively, and return to mute. Bruce Colton.
I'm here.
Tom Long.
Present.
We have been told that Andrew McDougall will be absent this evening. I, Doug Marshall, am present. We've been told that Janet McGowan will be absent this evening. Johanna Newman.
Present.
Karen Winter.
Present.
Thank you all. Board members, if technical issues arise, we may need to pause to fix the problem and then continue the meeting. If the discussion needs to pause, it will be noted in the minutes. Please use the raise hand function to ask a question or make a comment. I will see your request and call on you to speak. After speaking, remember to remute yourself. For the public, the general public comment item is reserved for public comment regarding items not on tonight's agenda. Please be aware the board will not respond to comments during general public comment period. Public comment may also be heard at other times during the meeting when deemed appropriate. Please indicate you wish to make a comment by clicking the raise hand button when public comment is solicited. If you have joined the Zoom meeting using a telephone, please indicate you wish to make a comment by pressing *9 on your phone. When called on, please identify yourself by stating your full name and address, and put yourself back into mute when finished speaking. Residents can express their views for up to 3 minutes or at the discretion of the planning board chair. If a speaker does not comply with these guidelines or exceeds their allotted time, their participation may be disconnected from the meeting. Okay, so the time now is 6:38. We'll go to the first item on the agenda, which are minutes. And it looks like we have minutes from November 16th that were included in our packet. Did anyone have any comments on those minutes? All right, I do not see any hands raised with comments. Does anybody want to make a motion to accept these minutes as drafted by our staff? Johanna.
I move to accept the minutes as drafted.
All right, thank you. And Tom?
And second.
Thank you, Tom. All right, we have a motion on the floor to accept the minutes. Any discussion? I do not see any hands for discussion. All right, in that case, we'll go through and have our first vote of the evening on the November 16th minutes. Bruce.
I approve.
And Tom.
Approved.
And Johanna.
Approve.
And Karen.
Approve.
And I'm an approve as well. So that's 5 in favor, no abstentions, 2 members absent. All right, time is 6:39. We'll go to the second item on our agenda, our public comment period. And let's see. All right, I'm seeing that we have at the moment 5 members of the public in the public attendees. I do see one actually, I've been reading who is in the public attendees for the record. And at the moment I see actually 6. Renata Shepherd, Eric Wright, Jonathan Gerfine, and I know he's here for the second public hearing. Kyle, I assume is Kyle Willison, is here for the first public hearing. Maura Keene and a Tim A. All right, so Renata Shepherd has her hand raised. Actually, Bruce, I see your hand raised. Do you want to make a comment before we go to public comment? You are muted.
Yes, Doug, you didn't. You didn't say that the comments should be restricted to general items not on the agenda. Is that correct?
Well, I have a recollection of having read that in the introduction.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that because I think I know why Renata Shepherd is here.
Oh, okay. Well, then I can certainly repeat
Yeah.
that this comment period is for items that are not on our agenda for this evening. So it should not have comments right now for items related to the Archipelago project on Olympia Drive or on Mr. Gerfine's project on Belchertown Road. So Bruce, it sounds like you were correct. Renata has removed her hand. And so it sounds like her comment may come later. All right, I don't see any other hands raised for public comment at this time. So I guess we'll go on to the third item on the agenda. Let's see. Okay, so the time is 6:41 and we're gonna we're opening a public hearing. This is for site plan review and special permit. In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, this joint public hearing has been duly advertised and notice thereof has been posted and is being held for the purpose of providing the opportunity for interested citizens to be heard regarding SPR 2023-01 and SPP 2023-01. Archipelago Investments LLC, 47 Olympia Drive. This is a joint public hearing to request site plan review approval under section 3.326 of the zoning bylaw to construct a private apartment style dormitory with 68 dwelling units and associated interior and exterior spaces and associated site improvements, including waiver of on-site parking requirements, a special permit to modify maximum building coverage and height requirements under section 6, table 3, footnote A of the zoning bylaw, located on map 8D, parcel 18 in the RF zoning district. This hearing has been continued from August 3rd, September 7th, September 21st, October 19th, November 2nd, and November 16th, all of this year, 2022. All right, do we have any board member disclosure? I do not see any hands raised. All right, Mr. Wilson, you are back, and I hope you have at least a couple of things to say to us.
Yes, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Since we were last before you, we've been before the Conservation Commission a couple of times. We are in a position with the Conservation Commission where we had 2 items outstanding, which were the connection to the utilities on Mather Drive and the mitigation fee for an imposition beyond 20% in the buffer zone. The mitigation fee has been given to us by the town, and I think we've clarified the deeded rights that we have for utilities on the connection of Mather. So we are extended our public hearing at the Conservation Commission until January 11th. So we expect to go back before them on the 11th and hopefully get a vote and be through Conservation Commission. So I appreciate you guys meeting with us in advance of that. I expect that once we're through that, we should be near the end of this. I think for 47 Olympia, I think what we could do, Chris obviously sent the draft conditions of the site plan review and the special permit. And I thought I could answer any questions that might be outstanding. Again, appreciate you guys meeting with us in advance of Conservation Commission.
All right. And I just wanted to ask you one question.
Sure.
I noticed in the draft conditions that Chris had put together, she added a couple of conditions that relate to the outstanding issues with the Conservation Commission. Is it helpful to you for us to, if we are going to approve this, is it helpful for us to do that tonight, or are you neutral on whether we do it now or after the Conservation Commission?
Obviously, it's always helpful for us to proceed as quickly as we can. I understand the quorum issue that the Conservation Commission is trying to juggle. I don't want to impose on the process too much, but if we could proceed tonight, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. All right, board members, are there questions for Kyle that have relate to whatever's happened since our last meeting, or on something you forgot to ask at the last time we had him before us? Anything new? Not seeing anything. Okay, let's see, Bruce.
Not so much a question. It's a couple of comments, things that have cropped up in the interim. Kyle, I think I asked and encouraged you so far as bicycle storage was concerned to whether you were going to make provision in the building for I think I said specifically electric bicycles. I was concerned that whereas those types of bicycles are valuable and may not be, people might not be comfortable storing them outside in the bicycle storage provided, even though now it's intended to be covered, and they're clearly heavier than can be carried up to the rooms, which is what you've advised us that residents will do if they've got bicycles that are more than minimal value. In the interim, I've been reading reports particularly from New York City, where there is some considerable danger apparently with the current generation of electric bikes and batteries and so forth, causing fires and so forth. So I thought I should add that in that I am no longer pushing you for that in the near term anyway. You can decide in the future with your market and how it goes and so forth whether you want to do that. So I'm now stepping back from any advocacy of that particular that particular feature, shall we say. Secondly, apropos of parking, and this is not a question so much for Kyle as a piece of information for us as board members or as a board and staff. I have been concerned about the prospect of granting parking waivers, and people have been asking me questions about that too, not least of which is Renata Shepherd, who was in the audience because I sent her a link. But because of that, and because of Andrew's, I think it was Andrew or Tom said, this is likely to be a self-correcting problem. And I thought, well, what is the prospects of overflow or problems in association with that self-correction? If somebody can't find parking, Andrew was noting that then they would probably be less inclined to rent from Kyle, and Kyle would be motivated to make amends in some way, and this would be a process. And I thought, well, what is the what are the opportunities for predatory parking around here? And so I thought to go and talk to the Wayfinders people, who are the owners and managers of the Olympia Oats next door. And I managed to get in touch with their CEO of Wayfinders, a gentleman named Keith Ferry, and I had a really long discussion with him. He turns out to be a Amherst resident, so he's not unfamiliar with this process. But in brief, he told me two things. One was that Olympia Oats have had no problems with the current situation so far as 57 Olympia Drive is concerned. And second, he said that they have no concerns about about the prospect of parking and us waiving a parking, and depending on the students being able to get their parking permits from the university under the terms or under the circumstances that we previously discussed. He has no concern with that. He has no concerns about us creating a situation like that, providing, he says, that the management of the 47 Olympia Drive proceeds similarly to the way in which it has with with Olympia Place, I guess. So I also gave his office and he personally a link to this meeting, thinking that he could either say it himself or argue with that representation of his of the way the organization feels. But that's so my concern about predatory parking seems to have not be one that I'm thinking is a significant impediment here. And I thought that both of those, that also would be something that the board might like to hear. I don't know whether it would rise to a finding, but maybe it does, but we can decide whether it should go in findings or not. I think we might want to get CEO Ferry to confirm what I said before we elevated it to a finding.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
All right. Well, before we go to the findings and conditions, I think I would like to let the public comment if there are folks in the public that would like to comment. Members of the public, are there any comments you'd like to make? Okay, now I do see Renata Shepherd's hand. Pam, if you could bring her over. Please give us your name and your address, presumably in Amherst, and you would have 3 minutes for your comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Renata Shepherd, Justice Drive, Amherst. I would like to express my opposition to granting a waiver for parking for the Olympia Drive project, due to all landlords in Amherst are required to provide adequate parking for tenants. I don't know what rent prices will be, but based on other projects, I'm fairly certain rents won't be any lower for lack of parking. Relying on tenants purchasing UMass permits is not really adequate or sustainable, especially because student passes are more expensive than staff, for instance. Students have expressed concern before in like rental permits and stuff, because of high rent costs, and this extra expense just seems very unreasonable. And it's also unreasonable to assume that they won't have cars or their guests won't have cars. I just would like to express that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment? All right, I do not see any. All right, board members. If you have any additional comments or questions for Kyle, this would be a good time to do it. If not, I guess the next step would be for us to move into the review of the findings and conditions that were drafted. Nate, do you want to take the lead on that?
I guess
You don't sound very excited about it.
no, I can do that. I was gonna say too, a few things. One, Erin Jacques, the wetlands administrator, told staff that she's pretty comfortable with having the planning board approve this project. So it really is kind of a, I don't want to say perfunctory at this point review by the Conservation Commission, but they've gone through, most, the project to the point where it's just like those 1 or 2 remaining items. And so they're, she's pretty confident that it can move forward. It was a quorum issue, not necessarily anything else that delayed their review at the recent meeting. So they actually didn't have enough members present to actually hold the meeting, so they had to continue it. And then, just it's in the conditions. I was just going to say that, the address or this property will be known as 47 Mathers Drive. So, we're calling it Olympia, but there is that change. So that's, just for clarity.
So, I mean, I guess I had one small comment or question about that. Since all of the advertisements and, the announcements and agendas have all referenced Olympia, will those be changed to Mather so that in the future somebody can find when they're looking for the permitting of Mather, 47 Mather, or will it just vanish?
No, it's a good question. I think we can link it. I could be corrected, but we'll have to have something where there's a, the property itself isn't changing, right? So the property ID, parcel ID is the same. And so it's just more of an internal change. That's something we could have, in our permitting history, we could have some way to track that. It's just like a, an A&R, right, or a condominium association that then changes addresses. We can track that.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Pam, why don't you bring up our findings and conditions?
I was going to do that, Pam, just so if we have to type on it, I can.
You can edit as we go.
I can edit it. I have which ones I have. I guess it's this one.
All right.
I can make that a bit larger.
Well, it's good and big for me.
Did you want to do conditions first or findings?
I think I think we've done findings first usually, right?
We do, but I don't know if it.
Geez, I have the conditions, the findings. Sorry for the scrolling. I'll stop share and. Actually, I don't have the findings right now in a Word document. So Pam, if you bring those up, I'll grab them.
Okay, hold on. Findings. Okay.
All right. Can you enlarge it slightly?
Maybe too much. How's that?
That seems good.
Nate, now can you take control of it?
Well, I wouldn't be able to edit it, so I was just trying to find.
You want Pam to email it to you and then you can open it?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it quickly, but it might be better if you.
That's going to take a minute, so hang on.
All right, let me just, yeah.
You should, can you not find it in the packet? Well, hold on.
I think I have it now.
You got it?
Yeah, it's taking me a second to pull it up.
So Pam, you can stop share.
And we'll walk through the site plan review findings first, and then we can move on from there. All right, so here are the draft findings. They have revision date of 12/15 is the most recent one, so it's been revised a few times. So I'll start reading through them. Is that?
Yep, that's been our practice.
Sure.
Actually, Bruce, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, yes, Doug, I think we've reviewed these once as a board, that probably at our, if I recall correctly, some of these things, but it seems that there are other,
There have been some edits.
Yeah.
And so,
so
know-
which date of the three revision dates would be the date of our previous review of these as a board? Is that included in the 3 dates? Is that one of the 3 dates on the top here? Just FYI, so I can see whether I should be looked, because if it's the last one, then I'm imagining that we've seen all this before, but I couldn't remember that we had or not.
So I believe it is 12/7 was the last time that you reviewed them, and there have been some small changes. Based on the,
That's helpful, Pam. Thank you. I think that's all I need to.
okay,
Mhm. Right, I agree. So it's probably, everything just showing in track changes is really what's been, I mean, there's maybe been a few deletions, but really it's just the changes that are visible are the recent ones.
Mhm.
So I can start reading. So the board found under section 11.24 of the zoning bylaw site plan review as follows. 11.2400. The project is in conformance with all appropriate provisions of the zoning bylaw, with the exception of the provisions requiring waiver of on-site parking requirements and the special permit for modification of building coverage and height. The special permit has been applied for concurrently with the site plan review. Although the applicant has requested a waiver of the requirement for a sign plan will be required as a condition of the site plan review approval. The applicant has provided a plan to show the location of handicap parking in front of the building along Mather Drive. The applicant has requested a waiver from the requirement for on-site parking. And so, we had asked last time or discussed showing that the handicap parking in front in the parking area.
Mhm.
11.2401. Town amenities and abutting properties will be protected because detrimental or offensive actions are not planned for this site. The site plan appears to minimize the possibility of detrimental or offensive actions. 11.2402. Abutting properties will be protected from detrimental site characteristics resulting from the proposed use. Lighting will be downcast and will not shine onto adjacent properties. 11.2403. Adequate recreational facilities, open space, and amenities will be provided because the property will include a recreational space within the building. The property is located near a town-owned property with access to a trail that connects through Olympia Oaks to the town-owned trail system, providing additional recreational opportunities. The building proposed for the site is large and takes up much of the property, but there is a courtyard proposed near the entry, which is available for use by the tenants. 11.2410. I'm just going to scroll for a minute. Not applicable. There are no unique or important natural, historic, or scenic features on the site. 11.2411. Proposed methods of refuse disposal are described in the management plan. They are considered to be adequate. Trash will be stored inside the building in a refrigerated storage area. 11.2412. The ability of the proposed sewage disposal and water supply systems to serve the proposed use is considered to be adequate. The property is connected to the town sewer and water systems via a connection in Mather Drive. Mather Drive is owned by the University of Massachusetts. The town engineer has reviewed the project and has not expressed concerns with the proposal regarding these issues. 11.2413. The ability of the proposed drainage system within and adjacent to the site to handle any increased runoff resulting from the development is considered to be adequate. The town engineer has reviewed the project and has not expressed concerns with the proposed system. The project has also been reviewed by the Wetlands Administrator and the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission agrees with the connection to the drainage system in Mather Drive. And that's a new piece that they can make that connection. 11.2414. Provision of adequate landscaping will be satisfactory because a landscape plan has been submitted. The landscape plan has been prepared in accordance with the Amherst landscaping guidelines. A condition of the site plan review approval will require that the applicant submit a landscape plan showing quantities of plants prior to the issuance of a building permit. 11.2415. The erosion control plan has been submitted. It has been reviewed by the town engineer and the Conservation Commission and has been found to be satisfactory. Let's see. 11.2416. It's on 2 pages here. Adjacent properties will be protected from the intrusion of various types of nuisances, including air and water pollution, flood, noise, odor, dust, and vibration through appropriate site and structure design, and the use of appropriate design and materials for containment, ventilation, filtering, screening, soundproofing, and sound dampening, and other similar solutions. The use of the property, apartment-style dormitory, is not expected to produce air and water pollution. The stormwater drainage system has been designed to prevent flooding. Noise within the building will be contained by the building's outer walls and windows. Noise from the site will be contained by the courtyard, which is surrounded by 5-story building sections. Odor is not expected to be produced by the new building. Dust and vibration will not be produced by the finished building and will be controlled during construction by requirements of the construction logistics plan. Screening will be provided for the loading area.
Hey, Nate.
Yep.
On the second line of the new page,
Mhm.
The word buildings should have an apostrophe.
Mhm.
Is that?
Yep.
Yep, all right. Yes, I have buildings outer walls, okay. 11.2417, protection of adjacent properties by minimizing the intrusion of lighting has been discussed. All exterior lighting will be required to be downcast and dark sky compliant. The applicant shall submit catalog cuts on all exterior lighting fixtures for review and approval by the planning board prior to installation of these fixtures. The applicant shall submit a photometric plan of the site lighting for review and approval by the planning board prior to installation of exterior lighting fixtures.
So Nate, I guess I note that this paragraph is saying the later submittals would be submitted to the planning board for approval.
Mhm.
But the earlier reference to the landscape plan
Right.
did not say we would see it or approve it or anything like
Mm.
that. And I guess one of my questions is, how many times do we want to get, how much more involvement do we want or need to have?
Right, and so,
And why aren't we being consistent about whether we see things or not?
right, and I think there's, yeah, so in some of the conditions as well, it says that it would be submitted, prior to the issuance of a building permit, and then it would, essentially be reviewed by the building commissioner and staff. And so, I think for the lighting, it could be a similar language. It could be that, all lighting needs to be downcast and dark sky compliant, and it has to meet certain illumination requirements. And so, the findings and the conditions could say that they just be submitted prior to the issuance of a building permit. I mean, it may be that sometimes the planning board wants to see a photometric plan to make sure that, there isn't light spillage onto other properties, or that there's a sufficient illumination in parking areas or walkways. And
Okay,
perhaps the findings could say that, or the conditions could say that, and then, that has to just be clear on the lighting plan.
right. Bruce, I see your hand.
So far as the landscape plan is concerned, I seem to remember asking Kyle last time about the numbers, because on the sidebar on the landscape plan, all of the plants everything was meticulously and thoroughly done. The only thing that was missing was the column giving the numbers of the particular plants. And that's why I think at the time we said that column should be filled in. But I do recall Kyle's answer, and it was that, well, actually the numbers are there. It's you just have to add up the numbers on the actual plan. So maybe it was because the plan is very close to being complete with the numbers that we may not have mentioned it in the earlier situation.
Right, it's considered, right, it's such an insignificant change that essentially the planning board has, reviewed it, there's enough of a plan. Here, we're saying that there hasn't, the photometric plan hasn't been submitted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so members of the
Okay.
board, do you want to see the site, the lighting plan and have approval, an approval opportunity for that, or do we want to leave that in the hands of the building commissioner? How do people feel about that?
Well, I personally always like to see photometric plans because I have a sense of what I'm looking for. But so if it was, but your question probably is, do we need to have up a? I mean, I'd be happy to look at it and just send a comment to you, or so I don't necessarily need to see it as part of the whole board if that would streamline the process.
Well, this is saying at a, planning board review, so it's not saying at a public hearing. This could be, at any public meeting, a regularly scheduled meeting of the planning board, that these plans could be submitted.
All right, well, I guess we can receive them, put them in a packet, and then as part of the meeting agenda, we can ask if anybody had any comments or not.
Yeah.
Tom, I see your hand.
Works.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I think there's a stipulation as well. We're gonna need to see, a signage plan in the future and approve that before those are installed as well. So, I mean, I think it's fine to assume that, I think it would be good for us to see it, especially since we're near wetlands and forested areas. So I'd like to just at least see it before it goes out. But I think as Bruce said, I don't necessarily think it needs to hold up the process. I think as long as it's something that comes our way.
Okay, well, why don't we leave the language this way, and we'll get the material and have a chance to comment.
All right, so we can move on then to 11.2418. It's not applicable right here. The property is not located in the flood zone conservancy district. 11.2419, wetlands will be protected by building in accordance with the provisions of the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Amherst Wetlands Bylaw. The project has been reviewed by the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission has reviewed the proposal and will be issuing an order of conditions. 11.2420, that's not applicable. I'm just going to scroll for a second. 11.24.
By the way, you had an extra semicolon at the end of 2419.
Yeah.
There we are. Thanks. 11.2421. The development is reasonably consistent with respect to setbacks, landscaping, entrances, and exits with surrounding buildings and development. There will be no on-site parking. Tenants who own cars may purchase parking permits from UMass and use the adjacent UMass parking lots. Although there is no on-site parking, there will be a significant number of bike racks on site located along the northern property line. 2 handicap spaces will be provided in the parking lot along Mather Drive with a crosswalk leading to the new building entry court. There are already 2 existing handicap parking spaces in the parking lot, which will remain. 11.242.
Nate, I see Karen's hand.
Oh, yes, yep.
Yeah, I should have asked this before. Significant amount of bicycle parking. I never got a sense of, also, I'm grateful that there's now covered on-site bicycle storage for the tenants. But what is significance? Could you give me a ballpark number? How many bicycles? I mean, we know how many tenants there are. Is this 15? Is it 20? What do you estimate?
Kyle, that might be a question for you. Do you know how many bike racks?
It hasn't changed on the landscape plan. I don't have it right in front of me. I believe it's 22 at last.
Yeah, I was going to do a new share and share the, here's the site plan. And, this is the bank of bike racks right here. So that's a pretty big pad.
Yeah, so it's my hope that we're going to really transition these dormitories to be really bicycle friendly, and that with time, the university and others realize that bicycle paths should be dedicated bicycle paths that are safe and not necessarily sharing the road, and that everything should be done to kind of push that forward. So that's why I'm just mentioning this. I'm comparing it to places where people that live in this proximity to a university really do embrace this kind of transportation. So I'm hoping that there's going to be enough room. That's why I'm mentioning this. Thanks.
Nate, I will say that the imprecision of that language is a little bit kind of, less than ideal. I wondered whether we might change that sentence to just say bicycle racks will be provided, or there will be bike racks on the site.
So is the language visible again?
Yes.
Yes.
We could say there will be bike racks on site.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
we're approving a site plan that shows how many there are. So.
Right.
All
right. So I deleted, there'll be a significant number, and now we just say there'll be bike racks on the site. Yeah, I mean, Kyle has, the applicant has mentioned too that tenants have a tendency to also bring bikes into their units if, for security or for personal reasons. So some are left outside and some they carry up, they bring to their units.
Bruce, I see your hand.
Why don't we just put there will be covered bike racks on the site? You may as well make that point. I think it's worth making.
Okay. So add the word covered.
Yes.
Can we confirm if those are covered or not?
That's been Mr. Wilson's assertion in the last meeting where we reviewed the plans. Kyle?
Sorry, I muted. Yeah, so there's a request for covered bike racks. We've looked at that with Jody Verser, who's the architect from Modus. We've got an approach to do that. I think that that's something that we could also review when we come back before you with a photometric plan. If we wanted to talk a little bit more about how we look to cover the bikes in that same location. We're obviously not impacting the amount of coverage or the amount of concrete or the amount of bike racks. It's just how would you install structurally something that gives the cover and provides some screening looking north to 57.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that it's pretty close to the setback. So depending on, what happens there, you might need
another permit.
Oh yeah, a waiver or,
for putting a structure within the setback.
Yeah, I mean, right now the pad is, it looks like it's, feet, a foot or two, right, from the property line. So if you're, let me just go back to that. So here, here is the property line, and here is the, here's the bike rack, or the concrete pad.
I suppose, I suppose since both parcels are owned by Archipelago, I suppose it's possible they could adjust or eliminate that property line location too.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any problems with the neighbor to the north.
Well, I would like to have the word covered in that finding.
But is that?
Because
I think that's fine. And
I
would defer to Nate on how best to manage that subsequently, which I'm open to. Relative to all the other things we have to do to make the building work, if we're just reconciling how to best cover that and manage the setback, I think we'd be in good shape.
All right. What am I sharing? What am I sharing right now?
We're still seeing the plan at the moment.
Plan, all right.
Yeah.
Let's go back. So, all right. So covered bike racks, that was changed. And we'll move on to 11.2422. Is that
Well,
right.
I think it sounded, do we need to have language that the exact solution for the covered bike racks will come back to the planning board?
Well, I would think that that could be a condition. So the findings
Okay,
is that there's covered, and then the condition would be that, final plans need to be reviewed and approved by the planning board.
okay.
So 11.2422, the building site avoids, to the extent feasible, impact on steep slopes, floodplains, scenic views, grade changes, and wetlands. 11.2423, not applicable. There will only be one building on the site. 11.2424, screening has been proposed for the mechanical systems on the roof. They'll be located on the roof and surrounded by a parapet wall. Trash will be stored in the building, so there will be no dumpster on site. 11.2430, the site has been designed to provide for the convenience and safety of pedestrian movement, both within the site and in relation to adjoining ways and properties. There will be pedestrian access at 3 points into the building from the courtyard area. Okay.
Does that mean there's 3 doors into the building from the courtyard area?
Yeah, that's the way, right, there is. I just actually, I guess, Kyle, can you confirm that? I wasn't sure, I want to make sure that there's both, that all 3 are also our entrances and egresses. I thought 2 of them might be just egresses.
I think it would just be how we handle the card readers. We'd want them to be secure, first of all. So
Right.
if we want most of the traffic to go through the main lobby, we might limit those to just egress, but we want people to use the stairs. So they may very well, once you come into that courtyard, those 2 side doors on the stairs may have card readers and just allow for entrance right up into the stair.
So yeah, this is visible now. So here's the main entrance, here are the walkways in gray, and here's, one entrance to a stairwell and then another door. So those are the 3
Yep.
points.
All right, so if we go back to that language, I think you could lose the comma after
Yeah,
3 entry points.
right.
Where am I?
Go up.
So you're saying there will be pedestrian access at 3 points into the
Points
building?
into the building.
Yes.
From the courtyard area. I don't think we need any of those commas then.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right. Yeah, those commas trip me up a bit. All right, so Kyle, so you think that's accurate for now, that there are 3 points into the building?
looks like he's nodding his head.
Yeah.
Thumbs
All right.
up.
Yeah.
That's fine. Sorry. Yep.
Okay,
11.2431, the location and number of curb cuts is designed to minimize turning movements and hazardous exits and entrances. There will only be 1 curb cut for the service area at the side of the building, and there is an existing curb cut in the vicinity of this location. There will also be provision in the parking area along Mather Drive for 2 new handicap parking spaces and a crosswalk to the new building. This is in addition to the existing 2 handicap parking spaces along Mather Drive. 11.2432, the location and design of parking spaces, bicycle racks, and drive aisles will be provided in a safe manner. Bike racks will be provided on the north side of the building along the northern property line. A waiver has been requested from the on-site parking requirements. It looks like we'll have to clean this up a little bit due to track changes. There's some,
yeah,
remaining punctuation in spaces.
right. I'm seeing Johanna's hand and
Thank you, Doug. I'm just trying to figure out what does it mean to provide in a safe manner the location and design of parking spaces, bike racks, and drive aisles?
Right. So for instance, having, if the bike racks were between the parking lot and Mather Drive, right, on the opposite side of the site from the building, then people who park their bikes would have to either cross the parking lot or a drive aisle. But because they're, you know, already on site next to the building, once you know, if you dock your bike, you don't have to then cross a street to get into the building. So
Could we maybe just say like will be provided to, I don't know, maximize pedestrian safety or something like that? It just seems, it's awkward wording.
I
Maybe
assume
it doesn't matter.
a lot of this is awkward because it's sort of parroting the bylaw.
Yeah.
right.
And
it.
so, you know, we're trying to say that we've addressed the issue raised in the bylaw. And I mean, we could say something like bicycle racks and drive aisles are provided in a safe manner by minimizing conflicts between pedestrian, you know, demand paths and, you know, vehicles or something.
Right. Yeah. What we've done is we've recycled the criteria in the bylaw to become a finding, and it does get a little clunky sometimes. Is there a strong desire to rework this, or is this, you know, make enough sense?
Seeing 3 heads shaking no. So let's go on, I guess.
Sure. 11.2433 is not applicable. 11.2434 and 2435 are also not applicable. 11.2436, a traffic impact and access study prepared by Vanessa and Associates was submitted with a site plan review application for the previous project at 57 Olympia Drive. A new traffic impact and assessment dated November 2nd, 2022 has been submitted for the new building at 47 Olympia Drive, to be known as 47 Mather Drive in the future. The new proposed project is not expected to result in notable impacts to area traffic operations.
Hey, Nathan, that's a potential way of handling the addresses elsewhere, if needed, to, in parentheses, you know, to be known as.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, you know, usually we have the property card and our permitting software usually has a secondary field where we could keep that. So it's just a matter of making that connection once and then having it carry through.
Okay, it's almost better to have both rather than
Yeah, no, I
one or
think
the other.
parenthetically in the decision and everywhere else, we
Yeah.
could have this a few places so that it's noted. 11.2437, a traffic impact assessment dated November 2nd, 2022 has been submitted. The requirement for a traffic impact report as described in section 11.2437 of the zoning bylaw will be waived.
Is it a traffic impact and assessment as stated in 2436, or is it a traffic impact assessment?
I would call it.
I mean, doesn't it have a title on it that we could just reference?
Yeah, I'd have to just see what exactly it's titled.
I would guess it was a traffic impact assessment.
Yeah. Just going back through the.
I think if you wanted to just note that, and you know, if it takes a while to find it.
No, I have it from the previous meeting where they're calling it a traffic impact assessment. Yep.
So we can lose the and.
The and.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. And so those are the draft findings. So that's, if we're feel good about that, then we can move on to the conditions.
Board members, any other comments on the condition on the findings? Bruce.
Doug, might be time to raise my question about whether in any of those a reference to the comments of the chairman of Wayfinders about the absence of predatory any parking problems associated with the previous project. Is that a finding? I guess it's a question for you, Nate. Is that something that would find its way in here, or is it just better left in the minutes?
I mean, 11.2432 is where we state that a waiver has been requested from on-site parking requirements. That's the only reference I see in here, you know.
I think this one mentioned very much closer to the beginning.
Okay.
But I didn't say anything because I wanted to take it right through to the end and see whether we would. There we go. Right. But it's more a question for you as to is because I found that relevant. A number of people have expressed concern about people parking willy-nilly if they can't get, and that would affect the neighborhood. And I thought, well, the neighborhood here is basically the parking areas that we're talking about, that some people will feel would be full, and therefore there will be overflow. And the only place of where it could be overflowing that would be concerning to people would be Olympia Oats. And the finding that, for me personally anyway, is that that doesn't seem to be a problem.
Mm-hmm. At least it's not a concern.
So for me, that was a significant quote unquote finding, but I also recognize that the way we do our findings here are, as you said earlier, Doug, chapter and verse from the bylaw. So maybe it's a small F finding and not a big F finding. I guess that's my question. Is that a big F finding or a small F finding?
Well, I think that, there's a few areas in the condition. So right now we're seeing one, it says that, there will be no on-site parking. Tenants who own cars may purchase parking permits from UMass. It's 11.2421. And then we mention it, in a few other places. So 11.2430, and then, as Doug mentioned further on, 11.2432. So if I don't know if we have to cite, your conversation with Keith Berry, but if the board, feels that, that there's sufficient offsite or reason to assume that there is a reason to grant the waiver, then it could be here or it could be a condition. It might be here that.
I feel like I don't think it's really appropriate for us to put into writing what's kind of anecdotal, secondhand. I heard from Bruce that Keith is okay with it.
Well, but more than that, Doug, I sent you an email with his quotation of what he told me, and I copied him. So it's a little bit more than anecdotal, but
okay.
But so I think it's relevant to the record. But I'm thinking let's just keep it in the minutes.
Okay.
I'm happy with that. I mean, I'm just asking. And I think I know what the answer should be now, and it's that we should proceed without putting it in here, because there are some other problems too. I mean, it may not be anecdotal, but it is attributable to an individual. It's not a finding of fact so much as a finding of, I don't know what you'd call it, but
opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a section about deleterious impact on the neighbors.
Right.
I mean, we could say, the board has not, is not concerned that overflow parking will adversely affect the neighborhood or something like that, if we want to go there.
Right. Or, in the waiver request, the board would have to grant a waiver for the parking requirements. And so I think that's where you could say that
I agree. Thank you.
Through discussions, you found that, there's adequate provisions for either offsite parking or that there won't be impacts to the neighborhood. And then, that's why you can grant the waiver.
Okay.
I had
Yes, Kyle.
Quick, when you were scrolling there, Nate, I must have missed it. I'm sorry. On 11.2411, it says trash will be stored inside in a refrigerated storage area. We don't have a refrigerated storage area next door at 57. We're not proposing a refrigerated storage area here. I don't know if that's a remnant from something else.
But you are storing the trash.
The trash is inside. It's just not refrigerated like the word
Okay.
in a Boltwood. Same thing as next door.
Are you sure you don't want to have it be refrigerated? You could have store other things right then too. Well, sorry, what number was that, Kyle?
11. I think.
2411.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, when I read that, I was
I just saw it when you scrolled again, and then I looked and I saw it. So yeah.
sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I didn't say that on the plan, so all right.
Thank you.
All right, why don't we go ahead and move on to the findings?
The conditions.
I'm sorry, the conditions, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
All right, so here are the, it starts with waivers and then conditions. So would we want to, start with conditions and then do waivers second?
Except, I mean, it doesn't matter to me.
Me neither. So I think, there's, right now two waiver requests. It's the, we're initially the application had a sign a plan, but we're saying no, that they will come back with one. So there's two remaining waivers. One is a traffic impact report. And so there's a traffic analysis, not a full report. And then request to waive the on-site parking requirements in accordance with section 7 and 7.9.
Right. Bruce, I see your hand.
Yes, this is a question that I had in my head for the past week or so. If we're waiving the parking requirements, we haven't actually established what those requirements are, or maybe we have because it's section 7.30 and 7.90. Are those I guess are the two sections with competing with the generate one generates 230 odd and the other generates 135. Is that so? Are we happy just saying this, or do we feel that, I guess my question was, do we feel we need to establish exactly what the parking requirements would be that we are waiving, or are we happy just citing the two sections that give different numbers?
Nate, what would you typically just do the section reference?
Right. I think here, essentially the bylaw 7.0000 says that there are two parking spaces for each dwelling unit. Although the permit granting authority shall determine the adequate number of off-street parking spaces based on criteria, and they can, then change that ratio. So, what the applicant can also then waive with 7.9, waive that requirement. And so that's what's being requested here, is that, there's no on-site parking provided. And it's, they're saying, the applicant's saying that it's not necessary because within the vicinity, there's, permit parking through UMass that the tenants can apply for. There's public transit, there's bike racks. And so, in the zoning bylaw, we list, parking needs generated by on-site uses, proximity to public transit or to downtown, availability of alternative modes of transportation, tenant lease restrictions relative to parking, shared or leased parking. So
they're all the reasons why we might do it.
Right.
My question was, do we need to establish the brick that we're forgiving or we're waiving? And
well,
maybe the answer is we don't. It just seemed to me that at some point I just wanted to make sure that that's not something that we will regret for some reason that I don't know, not having done, if we don't do it. I'm not interested in all of the reasons because I think I understand them pretty well. It's simply this technical matter of, do we have to establish a number that we can then waive?
I know here it'd be, you know, the requirement in the entirety, 7.000.
Okay. So it sounds like, having had the question put point blank at you, that you're comfortable with the way, you don't think that we're going to find ourselves in any invidious position any way down the road for proceeding with basis, if we proceed exactly as it's currently stated.
No.
Okay, thank you.
And Nate, do we need to state anywhere that we find that having no parking spaces required other than the 2 additional handicap spaces is an acceptable condition?
So I guess it could go in the findings, or it could go here relative to the waivers, that the waiver was granted. You know, with, you know, like, just like what you said, Doug, so.
Well, it's kind of a follow-up to what Bruce was saying, you know,
Right.
let's say section 7 requires 260 spaces and section 7.9 requires 130. And in fact, what we've decided is we needed 50. Well,
Right.
wouldn't we want to say that somewhere? And I mean, maybe it's just going to go in the conditions, and if so, that's fine.
Right, yeah, no, so
You've got
7
this
point,
third section called waivers, and
right,
it kind of doesn't really fully tell the story about the waivers.
right, so 7.000 is the one that has the number of parking spaces per unit, and so that's where you would, or could establish what would be an appropriate number. 7.90 typically, it says that any section of the parkings, any subsection of 7.0 parking regulations may be waived or modified by the permit granting board or special permit granting authority for compelling reasons of safety, aesthetics, or site design. So typically, when the board would approve a 7.9 waiver, we would just say, the vote or the waiver would say for safety, aesthetics, or site design. And for 7.000, you could say that you found there is no minimum number of parking spaces, required, or so you could fold it into the language for why the waiver is being granted.
Well, Bruce, I see your hand and then I see Kyle's.
Yes, what I think I'm hearing is that we need what we have here is simply that there is a request to waive parking requirements. And so now we have, if we have to have the language that grants the waiver and presumably the basis upon which we grant it. And so I guess so who's going to write that? Is that something we write tonight, or Nate, are you going to draft it and send it around and we can review it, which sounds like a better idea, but it does seem to me that we're missing the language, we're missing the decision and the language supporting the decision. Is that correct?
Well, I think that could be a motion for why to grant the waiver. It would just, be the motion on which you vote to grant the waiver.
All right, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of with Bruce. This waiver section, doesn't have any complete sentences in it. And, is it actually stating something? Is it something we're supposed to approve, or is it simply, it's the documentation of which waivers were requested? And if that's the case, you could have an introductory sentence that just says the following waivers have been requested.
Right.
And then you've got a sentence. So I don't know, maybe we should go on to the conditions and see how they're written. And
Right. So typically, if once this becomes a decision, there would be probably an introductory line or two, Doug, like you mentioned, that the following waivers were discussed and voted on, and it would, then have a bullet point or two.
yeah, and I guess I don't know whether we want to belabor this tonight, but the way 7.000 is written, I'm not sure this is a waiver from that section. All it says is that Two parking spaces are required unless we deem otherwise. So somewhere in the conditions, we could say we deem that no spaces are required and there's no waiver. 7.9 is where you get into waivers.
Yeah, I agreed. Although 7.9
You know, I mean,
allows,
I'm sorry, but didn't we revise 7.000 in order to not require waivers? I mean, that was part of the discussion when we had that bylaw revision, that some applicants were put off by having to go to waivers. And we wanted to put it up in the front and make it clearer and not require a waiver in order to negotiate the number of parking spaces. So it seemed like we were trying to simplify it rather than drag waivers up to the front. So that's just, I guess that's a side comment. Let's go on, Kyle.
Just real quick, I think that with the findings, that the findings show what are on the plans and what's been agreed to. So it does, regardless of what's a waiver or not, I think it does clearly state what is being approved.
Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, I have no problem with this. I see it as being completely clear that these are the waivers. And then I think I agree with Bruce that because we are waiving it somewhere in the conditions, we clearly state because of the place where this is being built and et cetera, we are in agreement that that we are not requesting this this requirement. But to have waivers, to me, it's very clear and concise. I don't have a problem with it. I just to put that in. Sorry.
Okay, good. All right, Nate, why don't we go ahead and read through the conditions?
sure. So conditions, there's a few subsections. So we have the general here. The development shall be built substantially in accordance with plans submitted to the planning board and approved on, whatever date that may be.
Was it December 7th was when we had our last set of plans?
Was it the 7th or the?
This, I believe it was November 16th. I think I made an error when I said that you reviewed it last on the 7th. So I think it would be November 16th. But the date that would go in there would be the date that you make a motion and vote.
All right, so it'll be today.
Correct.
And the development shall be managed substantially in accordance with the management plan submitted to the planning board and approved on, again, could be
Okay.
tonight's date. The property address shall be 47 Mather Drive. So that's a new addition. Occupancy of dwelling units at 47 Mather Drive.
I'm seeing Bruce's hand.
Just because of what was how we've addressed this in the conditions, in the findings at least, would we not say the property address formerly known as 47 Olympia Drive shall now be shall henceforth be 47 Mather Drive? Just Kyle seemed to like the clarity of connecting the two, past and present. So I was thinking, at least in this document, it might be good at least once, and this would be the place to say formerly known as and henceforth shall be. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. What was that wording? The property address.
Where am I? The property interest formerly known as, or formerly known as 47 Olympia Drive. Shall henceforth just put, I mean, that sounds a bit legal, but I think it works.
How many times can you use that in a sentence? So,
I taught
Good.
my grandson yesterday.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's good to have that there. Should we move on to number 4?
Sure.
Occupancy of dwelling units at 47 Mather Drive shall be limited to matriculated students enrolled at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst College, or Hampshire College, and their family members and the resident manager and his or her family members to the extent allowed by law. And so that's, really the type of use it is requires that they be matriculated students. And so it's a use classification in the bylaw. Number 5, parking for tenants at 47 Mather Drive shall be provided as set forth in the management plan for 47 Mather Drive. If the availability of parking for tenants changes from what is set forth in the management plan, the owner shall submit a new parking proposal to the planning board for its review and approval.
Okay.
Number 6, a lease shall be submitted to the planning board for its review and approval. The lease shall include the following. A, limitation on who may occupy the dwelling units at 47 Mather Drive, as described in condition 4 above. And B, information regarding parking, including a statement in the lease that students have the responsibility for obtaining parking permits for their own vehicles. Number 7, upon a change of ownership, or if the property is no longer managed by Archipelago Investments LLC or its affiliate, Amherst Innovative Living LLC, the new owner and/or manager shall submit a new management plan to the planning board at a public meeting for its review and approval. The purpose of the meeting shall be for the board to determine whether conditions of the permit are being complied with and whether any modification to the site plan review approval or management plan is required.
All right.
Yeah, and that's, so that's right. So once the, the board approves this site plan or it does any permit, even the ZBA, the permit really, once it's closed and approved, it just can't be changed on a whim. So, this provides an opportunity in the future if there's any outside something else, this is an opportunity to see if it's going well. Number 8, substantial changes to the project and/or substantial changes to any approved site plans or to the exterior of the building shall be submitted to the planning board for its review and approval prior to the work taking place. The purpose of the submittal shall be for the planning board to approve the change and/or determine whether the changes are de minimis or significant enough to require modification of the special permit or site plan review approval. Number 9, landscaping shall be installed in accordance with the landscape plan prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, and once installed shall be continually maintained as needed. All disturbed areas shall be loamed and seeded unless otherwise specified. Number 10, the building shall meet all local required energy efficiency codes and the regulations of the stretch energy code. In addition, low flow plumbing fixtures shall be installed throughout the project. Number 11, the site plan review approval shall expire within 2 years of the date that it is filed with the town clerk, unless it has been both recorded at the registry of deeds and substantial construction or use has commenced within the 2-year period. Number 12, construction shall be completed within 30 months from the date of issuance of the building permit. If more time is needed, the applicant shall come before the planning board at a public meeting for review and approval and an extension of time.
Okay.
Number 13, maybe it's number,
What?
maybe number 13 is really number 14.
Mhm.
What is
Try
the,
to, I won't change the numbering right now. It looks like it could get.
what are the 2 parts in brackets about the applicant has submitted this plan? What are they referring to? Do you know? What was deleted?
Yeah, so it looks like the drop-off entrance in front, we said would comply with Mass AAB regulations.
Mhm.
And that, those plans were submitted. And a landscape plan shall be submitted.
So we could take those 2 clauses or sentences out.
Right.
Mhm.
Those are really just for this meeting for us to
Mhm.
be reminded that those have already been submitted.
Yes, so I think that would, this is the way it would read next. So then, the parking was all set because that's been, those changes have been made to the handicap parking. And really what's left is this landscape plan. So condition 13 says the applicant shall submit a landscape plan showing quantities of specified plants to the planning board for review and approval prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay,
And number 14, the applicant shall satisfy payment of the wetland mitigation fee and complete the permit process with the Conservation Commission prior to the issuance of a building permit. 15, the stormwater drainage system for 47 Mather Drive shall tie into the existing drainage system in Mather Drive as shown on the utility plan prepared by SVE Associates dated May 3rd, 2022.
Kyle, I see your hand.
Could we put something in there, Nate, if the town engineer chooses to change something? Or if there's something that
Subject-
comes up?
Subject to the approval of the town engineer?
If we opened it up and he wanted us to do something different than that, we'd want to do what Jason says. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, is that Doug, what you're,
Oh, yeah, I guess I would probably, that's what I said. I think I
Right.
might add review and approval.
mhm. All right. Yeah, I mean, Kyle, do you know if Jason has looked at that? I mean, I know it was.
He
sent
has.
around. Yeah,
He has, if we open it up and he wants us to change something, I'd want him to be able to tell us to do that.
all right.
I mean, you could put it a little differently, that might be a little more accurately, that would say something like,
Um,
or as directed by the town engineer.
Yeah, I would say like subject to review, subject to change, but I think, or as,
Directed, yeah, by
mhm,
town engineer.
right.
All right,
All right. Number 16, a sign plan shall be submitted to the planning board for its review and approval prior to the installation of signs. So that's not, prior to the issuance of a building permit, but prior to the signs themselves. So if that's, if the board agrees with that.
yep.
Number 17, one hard copy and one digital copy of the final revised plans shall be submitted to the planning department. So project use residential, condition 18, the total number of dwelling units to be constructed at the project site shall be limited to a maximum of 68 units, 9 studios, 2 one-bedroom units, 1 two-bedroom unit, 7 three-bedroom units, 49 four-bedroom units, including 1 unit set aside for a resident manager, parenthetically a one-bedroom unit on the first floor.
All right,
Number 19, the building shall not exceed a maximum of 5 stories and a total of 56 feet 8 inches in height, measured from average finished grade on the street side of the building to the highest point of the flat roof, excluding any parapet or other rooftop equipment as outlined in section 6.17 of the zoning bylaw. Number 20, that principal use shall remain a private apartment style dormitory and shall not be changed to any other residential use. Number 21, the property shall not be used for temporary short-term housing, short-term lodging, or advertised as such in print or electronically.
and why does that need to be in italics?
I don't think it does. I think it was just to call attention to it, make sure we like the language. I'm gonna see what Chris.
Yeah. I think Chris initially was concerned whether we thought that was appropriate or not. And so
Yeah,
legacy.
right. So we've had conditions like that in the past. And why is that? Does this make sense? No less than 12 months. So, we had originally this condition did say the property should not be used for, housing less than 12 months or not less than 12 months. And that was removed the building commissioner thought that given this is really an apartment style dormitory, the leases don't necessarily have to be for 12 months, but it can't be used for short-term lodging, right? So there's a distinction there between the leases and then what the uses could be.
All right.
Number 22, apartments shall meet all applicable AAB and ADA requirements at the time of construction, including at least one accessible unit on the first floor.
You could also remove that other comma before or after requirements. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 23, the units at the project shall be registered and permitted in accordance with the Amherst residential rental property bylaw. Loss or suspension of a rental permit shall constitute a violation of this condition.
Okay.
Marketing and lease agreement. And so, I think Chris, she was just making this note here again. There was a condition that said residential leases shall be for a minimum of 12 months. And that's something the building commissioner thought wasn't necessary. So there had been, another condition here. So if we think if that's good, we could delete this bracket.
I would agree with that. I remember asking about the 12-month criteria in the last go round and
Right.
thinking there might be situations where it needed to be different than that.
Right. I mean, even if you just base the lease on the school year, it's not short term, but it's not 12 months. So, number 24, any substantial modifications to the lease agreement which may impact tenant oversight as determined by the building commissioner, specifically excluding minor updates such as pricing, date modifications, clerical errors, or language updates required by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or other government entity, shall require the applicant to return to the planning board at a public meeting. Building exterior and site improvements.
Nate, before you go on, I just want to let everybody know that Chris has arrived to the meeting.
Oh, thank you,
Yes.
Pam.
She is in the house.
Welcome, Chris.
She's in the house. All right.
Hi,
Yes.
Chris.
Good evening.
Hi, Chris.
All right. Number 25, the town engineer and building commissioner shall inspect the construction of the entry driveway and all on-site paved areas for conformance to town standards. I guess that's fine. Sometimes you might say before, before say the final certificate of occupancy, but I think this just will happen as part of the permit review process. Number 26, all on-site utilities shall be underground. 27, all exterior lighting shall be dark sky compliant. Exterior lighting shall be downcast, shielded, and shall not shine onto adjacent properties or streets. Number 28, the applicant shall submit catalog cuts of exterior lighting fixtures to the planning board for review and approval prior to installation.
All right, I see Bruce's hand.
Doug, just confirming, I know that in the findings we were referencing that in relation actually to this condition number 27, that a lighting plan would be submitted and approved. And I don't know that that was included up above with at 13, 14, 15, where we had other landscape plans and things. So I'm wondering, I think we might have to, we probably should make the condition now that the lighting photometric plan shall be submitted, because I don't think we've said
Yeah,
that.
do you want to just do that in 28 and just add that in?
Yes, if we haven't already, I don't think we've done it already, and I think now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, the applicant shall submit a photometric plan and catalog cuts.
Would we just have it be a second, its own
okay.
condition?
All right, that's fine.
So the applicant shall submit a photometric plan of the site lighting for review and approval by the planning board prior to installation of exterior lighting fixtures. So that's taken from the findings, that language.
Good.
May I say one thing?
Sure,
I think
Chris.
This is something Nate told me earlier today, I think, that the building commissioner would like to have the catalog cut submitted and the photometric plan approved prior to the building permit being issued. Is that what you told me, Nate?
Right, so sometimes Rob likes to have that language in there, so then there's there's a point in the project where it has to happen as opposed to, at any point, right? So it gives some impetus for the developer to get it ready before the building permit.
Kyle, any objection?
And
to providing
no,
those?
building permit's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, I think that would be a good milestone.
Language like that then?
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right. I just want to see how we had it worded again in the findings, but that looks prior to the issuance of, we say a building permit. All right.
Bruce, I assume your hand is a legacy hand? Okay,
All right.
go ahead, Nate.
Great. Completion of work. Number 30, the applicant shall provide as-built plans that show building location, grades, access ways, sidewalks and walkways, curbing, stormwater management facilities, lighting and utilities to the building commissioner, town engineer, and to be placed with the site plan review files in the planning offices prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
So Nate, this section we often don't read
Sure, right.
unless there's anything, tailored exactly to this project. If it's pretty much boilerplate, I think we could skip that.
It's pretty much the boilerplate that's there. We just added the town engineer's date of the letter and number 35 here.
Okay.
Otherwise, the rest are ones that are typical. Work within the right of way. We're saying, so we can go down here. We're saying that this isn't necessary.
Okay.
Let's see, amenities. I don't know if we typically read these as well. The entire project site and building shall be smoke-free or non-smoking to the extent allowed by law.
There was a question about that, if you don't mind my alerting this out, but the building commissioner had a question about vaping and whether Kyle allows vaping on his property and whether that would be covered by this number 38.
It's all smoke free. It's obviously a difficult thing to manage, but the management is no smoking, no vaping.
Thank you.
I think what you've got is fine.
Yeah, I feel like some regulations they consider vaping smoking, but maybe they're trying to get a little more, specific now. But
and it's all enforcement, right? What you can enforce.
Okay.
Yeah. So the management plan, number 39, all move-ins or move-outs shall occur during the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and shall be coordinated through the leasing office as to lessen the impacts of multiple moving trucks blocking parking or the fire lane. Number 40, snow plowed within the project area shall be promptly removed from the site as part of the clearing process to the extent possible. Number 41, all trash pickup deliveries, the operation of construction maintenance machinery, and landscaping equipment shall be conducted during the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Exemptions shall include emergency vehicles, snow removal, or other emergency situations as approved by the building commissioner. Number 42, the project shall comply with and be managed in accordance with all terms of the management plan. Any alterations to this plan shall be approved by the planning board at a public meeting. If the property or business operations are sold, the new owner shall meet with the planning board at a public meeting to review the management plan, to determine if it is still applicable and to decide whether or not to hold a public hearing to review and approve the new management plan. This is pretty similar to the previous, a previous condition. it's like, this second statement's a little bit different. But is that fine, Doug, to keep that here as well?
Yeah,
All right, 43, the owner will provide on-site staffing at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Staffing will include an on-site resident manager living in a ground floor apartment and front desk staff. Any change in on-site management shall require planning board approval at a public meeting. And so Kyle, I just want to make sure that that's an accurate statement.
We added a on-site manager apartment during the approval process here to satisfy the on-site need. We previously did not have it because we didn't think we needed it with what we're seeing for staffing needs next door. We obviously have Amherst Innovative Living available 24/7. I think that the way that's worded is a little strong. I think the owner will provide on-site staffing. We will have an on-site manager and we will have a front desk staff. That front desk staff will not be 24 hours, 7 days a week, so I wouldn't want to conflate that. The on-site manager obviously will live there.
so you would want us to strike the parenthetical 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
Yes.
But yeah,
This was language
Well-
that, that Janet had submitted after the last meeting.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I mean, I do. If I'm reading this, it makes it sound as if both say the front desk and the resident manager would be staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the front desk is going to be staffed, 24 hours a day is the way this reads to me.
Yeah, and that's not the intent. We have access 24/7 with our property management. We have an on-site manager who will live there. So I'd say this language is not as clear as what we're intending to provide.
how would you propose to alter that?
I would the owner will provide an on-site resident manager living on the ground floor, will provide access to property management staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because anybody can call or email or text or get in touch with us online 24 hours 7. And then if there's a lockout or somebody needs, emergency, then that's part of our staffing plan, and either the on-site manager handles that or one of our maintenance staff will handle that.
Okay. To property management staff.
There you go. Yeah, that's actually fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
And take out that parenthetical phrase
Well,
or
I mean,
leave it in.
yeah, it's a little bit duplicative with at all times, but it
Mm-hmm.
makes it pretty clear that it's okay to have it.
Right.
Thank you.
Chris, your hand is up.
I'm sorry.
Are you good?
I'm
And
good.
Tom, you had Tom's hand is still-
Tom's hand's back. Okay.
Yeah, no, I still feel like it reads as though the manager living on the ground floor apartment and the front desk are still staffed 24/7 or at all times. It's reading like that to me, and that was my concern before, but I don't see that remedied because I can't imagine someone sitting at that desk 24 hours a day. So I don't know if that needs to be a separate line or somehow.
I mean, that would have been a pretty great work study job,
I know, right?
It could just be that front desk staff.
I think if you do take out the parenthetical, then that does probably check all the boxes. It does say they have access at all times to staff, and we do have on-site manager, and we do have front desk staff.
You all right with that, Nate?
To delete the parenthetical.
Yeah.
I understand what this is saying, that, they'll, whether it's posted or in the lease agreement or somewhere, that they're right, Kyle, that there's probably a number or numbers or some way to access property management staff. So.
Chris, based on your back and forth with Janet, Do you think this is consistent with what she was hoping, or is this a little bit less rigorous than, did she really want somebody at the front desk 24 hours a day?
I think she did, yeah.
All right, board members, are you all okay with not requiring an actual person at the front desk 24 hours a day? Bruce?
I'm okay. As Kyla said, based on experience next door, and it does seem to me to be a little bit leading the client by the nose, so to speak, in architectural terms, to telling him how to do his job. I think providing with everybody knows how to get in touch with somebody. I think that's enough. They don't have to be sitting there doing nothing. They can be more profitably occupied. It just seems more intelligent to do it the way that it's now written.
All right, thank you. And if anybody else has a objection, this is the time to raise your hand. All right, Nate, are there any more of these sort of boilerplate version?
Yeah, so the construction, those are, again, that's similar to the other section. So we have, a number of standard conditions, meetings, a construction logistics plan. I'm trying to think of, it doesn't look like there's been any
edits?
Changes.
Not really. Yeah, so no changes. So it looks like that's just all the standard.
All right. All right, so we've been through that and made some edits. I hope you'll save those changes, Nate.
I have a few times just to make sure.
Good, good. Don't want to go through them again. All right, let's see. Why don't we see, are there any general comments or additional comments from the board on either the findings or conditions before we go to tee up our vote? Chris?
I just wanted to make sure that you've been satisfied with the findings for the special permit that were, you went through them last time, and I'm not sure if you went through them this time because I wasn't here in the beginning of the meeting. And also, I understand that you've gone through the findings and that you found that the ones that we changed since the last meeting were satisfactory. Is that correct?
Yes, we went through the findings for the site plan review, I guess it was earlier in this meeting, and we made a few edits here and there, but generally I think people are okay with those.
Okay.
We haven't yet done the special permit findings again.
Oh, you haven't. All right. You don't, in my opinion, you don't need to do the special permit findings again because nothing has changed and you went through them before and you were satisfied with them.
So when we make our motion, though, we'll need to include those.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Board members, I'm going to see, I'm not sure we have anybody in the public that would like to make any comments before we, oh, okay, Karen, I see your hand.
I remember we were going to ask Nate to draft something, sort of the reason why we are not requiring on-site parking, just a short little something that we could review.
Or a statement that, having reviewed the requirements or the baseline requirements in 7.000, we've found that 0 parking spaces are an acceptable number of spaces on the property.
That sounds great, Doug. Yeah, so Chris, there was some discussion about how, what language would there be around the vote for the waivers, for 7.000 and 7.9.
We don't always have language as a finding, but for that particular one, maybe it is worth having that language.
Well, I think the thing that came up before you arrived, Chris, was if you look at 7.00, it at two spaces per unit would result in some number of spaces. If you look at 7.9, the way it reads might result in an assumption of some other number of spaces. And, you know, if it's fine for us to waive that, but at some place it might be good for us to say, we find that
Mhm.
0 spaces are acceptable, you know, for this property in this location.
So we should make a finding similar to the way we make findings under 11.24. We should say the board made a finding under 7.0000.
Phew.
Yeah,
The effect that you just stated. Is that
yeah.
correct? Ted?
I mean, the way the bylaw reads, it's two per unit, and unless we decide or find otherwise.
Mhm.
So Bruce, I see your hand.
If I was feeling a whole lot better, I could probably do this out of my head, maybe. But I think that this is probably the most contentious matter for what is a very good project. I think it's contentious because a lot of folks don't understand the rather peculiar history of this zone and this site. I think they don't understand that the buildings lots were created to hold buildings and that the parking was to be contained on separate lots that have been created, that over time these lots have been purchased and put to a more general use on behalf of the university, whereas this zone specifically intended for housing of university related residences. There's been some dissociation there that we find that the way the parking has evolved. The parking, the original intent is still achievable.
Being met.
Achievable through a particular mechanism that we don't, that the applicant doesn't control. I mean, this is not a very good way of doing it, but what I'm saying is I think it would be appropriate for us to create a short narrative that explains this, because I think otherwise people are going to say, there they go again. They just approve big projects with no fucking parking, you know, and I think we should, no matter what we think about what might have happened before. I mean, I don't know how many of us on this board were associated with previous waivers, complete waivers of parking. But whatever it is, this is a different situation. And I would think it was, I would really like us to distance ourselves from any previous tainting of these kind of decisions. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm really having trouble here. I don't think I'm going to be able to go much longer, so I'm hoping we come to a vote soon.
Yeah.
But I think that it's important that we create a narrative, and I would be happy to try and write it, but I can't do it now. And I don't know whether the absence of that is going to frustrate our evening or not.
You've dictated a pretty good outline.
Well, I didn't get to the conversation with the abutters, and which I think is important too, because the only possibility of predatory parking in the area, because there is no vulnerable abutters within half a mile, except for Olympia Oaks, and we have on good authority that they have not experienced in the past any predatory parking, and they have no fear that it will continue, that our granting of a waiver will result in such in the future. So all of that, I think, is important for us to say, so that we can hold our heads up and say, you know, you just got to read what we wrote and find out why we decided the way we did, as opposed to saying we know best. We can't be bothered saying it, but we're good. You got to trust us on this. I think that is a mistake. I want us to say in a decent short narrative why we are granting this. And you know, we've spent a lot of time talking about it. Kyle's answered our questions. I think Andrew or Tom's observations and Kyle's, that this is a self-correcting process in some way. We could take some moment to explain that, or to dredge that out of the minutes and put it in. Putting all that together, this is not something I think we can do in a moment here, but what I've tried to do is describe what it looks like, what it should look like, and what it should sound like. And I think we should put effort into this.
Okay. Chris, is this additional language something that the board could delegate to staff and maybe, you know, the chair and any other members that want to be involved to work out so that we vote tonight and then we can add that narrative?
I think that's one way to do it. Another way you can do it is to say that you approve the project with the findings and conditions, and that we will come back with specific wording at your next meeting, which is January 4th, for you to approve that particular
okay.
sort of
All right.
language. Does that
I
make
thought
sense?
we had to have that language completed, you know, sort of now, or
No, not really. I think, there are cases where boards approve something, but then they come back and approve the language that they use to justify
Okay.
what it is they approved afterwards at a public meeting. So I think you could have a public meeting tacked on to your January 4th meeting wherein you wordsmith the language.
okay.
But Bruce has given us an essential concept for what it is you're trying to say.
Right. Okay. Tom, I see your hand.
Thanks, Doug. And Bruce, I'm not saying this to disagree with you, but I would like to say that I think it sets a bad precedent that we have to write descriptions to validate every decision we make, because people might frown upon it in the public view. And I think that going forward, if we're going to have to write subjective statements about, or why we believe this is right or wrong, I think it becomes problematic in the future, because then we're under the gun to prove that we made the right decision in this case by having language to say that. So I do think that in this case there is a backstory. It's been documented. It's in this meeting. It's in our meeting minutes. We have a dozen reasons that we talked through in great depth today. And to me, that is our documentation of the reason why we made that decision. If someone wants to question it, they can read the minutes.
But the minutes go over 6 months, and I think it behooves us on a matter that we know is the most critical. This is a good project. It would be sad if this project was tainted by something as simple, or not as simple, as fundamental as us not pulling together those strands from 6 months of meetings and putting it into a paragraph or two that is unequivocal about why we do something. I don't think we're justifying anything. I think we're just taking steps to make it clear why we've done something, when we know that a lot of people are going to be concerned about this.
Well, one way to deal with it would be to have a little more extensive recording in the minutes of the considerations that went into it, for this meeting. I don't think any of us disagree with you, Bruce, that this is a good project in a good place that benefits from its proximity to the university and the bus lines and all the other things. And, it's a pretty compelling situation, I guess. So we could just be a little more careful in these minutes to say all that.
But Doug, I think it would be a mistake to do as Tom is suggesting and essentially stand on our high horse. I don't think that's good public relations. I don't think it's fair and reasonable. I don't think it's been good servants of the stewards of our responsibilities. I think we have to face up and do these things. And if we haven't done them before, I don't think that's a reason not to do them now.
Well, I'm not objecting to participating in that. I guess I would say that I'm not sure any more people are going to read something registered with the Registry of Deeds as a decision than they would read our minutes. All right, we have hands up from Karen and Nate. Karen, why don't you go?
Yeah, I totally agree with Bruce. I don't think that we need to worry about precedents. I do think that this is the contentious part. And it's very simple, as Chris outlined, to just add the wording to clarify this in this particular case. So I strongly feel that we should just add a few sentences, doesn't have to be long, because of the history of this particular process, because of the surrounding neighborhood, just very briefly, I think would be just an asset to the whole approval.
All right, thank you, Karen. And Nate?
Yeah, thanks. I was going to suggest that this language would just be incorporated into the decision that then is also reviewed. And so, the board could vote on the waiver knowing that the conversations from the past, 5 meetings would be summarized as part of the decision. And not necessarily reviewed at the next meeting, but it would be reviewed as part of, reviewing the decision.
All right. Chris?
That would be the same. I agree with Nate. And so we will draft a finding under that section of the bylaw 7.0000 that incorporates what you have discussed this evening, justifying your vote not to have parking on the site. But the finding will be a few sentences long. Does that satisfy everybody? And that's incorporated into the decision.
Yep. I think that would be good, Chris.
Okay.
So we will get that in a future packet.
Yep.
And we can discuss it at the meeting.
Mhm.
All right. But we can go ahead with a vote tonight, as I understand it.
Yes.
So the vote tonight, let's see. So we will be voting on the site plan approval of the site plan as submitted. Approval of the 2 special permit dimensional modifications, one for the height and the other for the lot coverage, I believe.
I think it's building coverage.
Building coverage, okay. And then also we will be voting to close the public hearing.
That's correct. And that you will do that with all the conditions and findings that you are
Have approved or have
approving.
reviewed and edited.
Yep.
All right, so Pam, having kind of narrated through that, is that enough for you to write down a motion if somebody wants to make such a motion? Tom, can always count on you to make a motion. Thank you, Tom. I'll go ahead and second it just to move along. All right, board members, an affirmative vote will be to approve the site plan review, the special permit with the findings, the conditions, and to close the public hearing. Chris?
So do you want to take one vote for both? Because there are different
There's different findings.
different numbers of individuals who need to vote affirmatively for a site plan review versus a special permit. So I'm just putting that out there. It's fine to vote for both if you feel comfortable doing that.
Well, why don't we do them separately just to keep things clean? All right, so why don't we do the site plan review first?
Okay.
All right, so we'll, Tom, may we friendly amend your motion to be for the site plan review first?
Yes.
All right, and I will do likewise with the second. All right, so this will be a vote yes if you're in favor of it and vote no if you're opposed. We'll do a roll call. Starting Bruce.
And we're closing the public hearing at the same time.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, Bruce.
Affirmative.
All right, that's And then Tom,
Right?
all right, Johanna
Aye.
and Karen.
Aye.
And I'm an I as well. All right, so that's for this special, for the site plan review.
Review, yep.
And now for the special permit. I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit dimensional variances and along with the findings and conditions for the special permit. Anybody want to second that? I saw Karen's hand.
Mhm.
I second.
All right, thank you, Karen. And then we'll do another vote.
And this includes closing the public hearing for the special permit.
And we'll close the public hearing. Bruce,
Yes,
Tom,
Right?
Johanna,
Aye.
and Karen.
Aye.
And I'm an I as well. Both votes, 5 in favor and 2 absent. All right, so thank you all. Bruce, you've gotten us through our necessary business tonight. Time is 8:35. We're a little late for our 8 o'clock break. So why don't we come back at 8:40?
Doug, can I interrupt? If I don't come back, is that going to cause any quorum or problems and so forth? Because I think
No, we have another topic on the agenda, but it's not a public hearing.
okay.
So thank you for bearing with us tonight.
Okay, I'm going to go. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
And
Thank
the
you.
time now is 8:36.
Have a
See you
good
in
night.
5 minutes.
Ooh.
All right, I'm seeing people trickle back. Looks like we've got Tom and Johanna. Chris, are you in a dark hotel room? We can't hear you.
Yes, I wanted to apologize. I came to Long Island to attend a funeral of my mother's favorite cousin, who was 89, and he passed away last Tuesday, and they're having his funeral tomorrow, and I just couldn't not go. I had to go. So I'm representing my family,
Yep.
and I'm wearing my mother's coat.
Oh,
And so I'm sort of bringing her with me.
okay. Well, that's nice. Glad you were able to do that and be with us tonight.
Thank you for being understanding.
And I'm saying hello from the island of Maui in Hawaii. Beautiful here.
Okay. All right, so I don't know whether Nate's going to come back, but since we have you, Chris, we can move on.
Mhm.
All right, so the time now is 8:43 and we will resume our meeting. The next item on our agenda, item 4A, is old business regarding site plan review 2020-03 with Jonathan Gerfine, Riverside Organics at 555 Belchertown Road. So we've had this topic on an earlier, at least one earlier meeting. We're reviewing some changes to the site that was made by Mr. Gerfine that have brought the site to now be out of compliance with the site plan review that was approved in 2020. So Pam, I see you've brought Jonathan over into to be a panelist. Mr. Gerfine, welcome.
Good evening.
And I believe you're there. I cannot see your image. Your camera must not be on.
Oh, no?
But I can hear you.
You can hear me. Oh,
I can hear you. So I believe you were going to be making a couple of changes to some of the concrete blocks and giving us a picture or two of that. So welcome, and tell us what you wanted to share with us tonight.
yeah, I have no idea why the video is not working. I apologize. Did you folks receive the pictures with the reflectors affixed?
Yep, I believe we did.
Okay. I didn't get a chance to put the gate up yet. I figured I'd see what you folks had to say about the reflectors.
Pam, can you bring up one or more of those photos?
I'm trying. Nate, how did you get them so readily before?
Yeah, I was trying to talk, but I was muted. I can,
Okay, Nate, welcome back.
yeah, we're actually, where are they now?
Yeah, you did have them.
I did. I just have to pull up my,
I have them too, but
see, let me just try one more time. The window has to be open to share, and then so let me try that again. All right, so here we are. So here's one image, a detail of what they look like.
Yep.
And here is the other image showing on the two blocks what it looks like.
All right, so I guess board members, I think the immediate question for us is whether the conditions that are out on this property are de minimis and we don't need to have any sort of public hearing or reopen or have a new public hearing about it, or whether, you know, whether we think it's significant enough that we do need to go through that. You know, the changes that Mr. Gerfine made are, in my opinion, pretty modest to the situation out there. But the blocks remain both, you know, outside at the street and inside within the property. Any thoughts from anyone? All right, I'm seeing some quizzical looks, but no hands raised. All right, Tom.
Sure. Did we have an outline for items that we were expecting in this meeting? I didn't see that in the packet. Was that? Because I was wondering if there were things that we were asking for specifically for this meeting.
No, I think from in the last meeting, you know, we were considering different things that we might insist that he do, and Mr. Gerfine basically said, "Hey, I've got something in mind I would like to do.
Yeah.
Let me just go do that, and then we can talk about whether that is adequate."
Right.
So the photos are showing what he's done, and we can like it or not.
And if I recall correctly, the biggest issue was safety in terms of people driving into the concrete blocks.
Well, we were all had some concern about that, and
Yeah.
I mean, I
That's right.
think
If I may,
yes.
so I had considered painting either the blocks, the face, all white. I considered painting them red and white stripes, you know, to add more of a visual, you know, for safety. Look, if the town really wants me to remove them, I'll remove them. I have no problem with that. You know, they're really there just to really deter people from driving in there. Like I said, people drive in there at a regular basis and they eat food and they just, it's, I just don't, I would never do that, but people are constantly eating in there and throwing food, and once in a while someone will drive in there or that way, you know, they'll start to and they'll veer, or they'll realize it's the wrong way to go. I'm easy. Look, if the town wants me to remove them, I will. Like I said, when I checked with Chris originally in the town, the you know, the works, you know, the town, you know, the city, you know, people that run the town, they said I could do what I want, but obviously I'm not going to fight the town. I'm not going to be arrogant about it. You know, I'll do whatever the town wants. Obviously, I want it to be safe. Obviously, the first and foremost of everything, priority is safety. So maybe if you folks feel that it's, appropriate, I could paint the front of the blocks white or red and white, with, striped, with thick stripes to help for reflection. And that's it. It's really to deter people from coming in there, being that it's a cannabis facility, being that it's a dead end to nowhere, being that they park there and throw garbage. Obviously, so now the other issue is the blocks in the interior. Those are not interfering with anyone or anything. They're not visible from the road, even on the way up to Valley, unless you really drive into the driveway and really look at them. Like I said, they're not pretty. I do not like them. Trust me, I do not like them. The reason I invested in them, and I came to the conclusion that they would be an asset, was to first and foremost protect the facility from being run into by accident by a car. Let's say someone comes in and there's rain or snow or whatever, and they go too fast into the greenhouse. I have a huge problem. As well as, let's say, some reckless individual wants to say, hey, you know what? And we see this all the time on the internet. I'm going to drive my car through the wall and then bust a hole, run in and steal whatever I can and drive away. If those Jersey barriers are there, that prevents them from doing that.
Chris, I kind of remember there being an issue with access to
A tank and garbage.
a tank inside that area, and maybe Rob Mora had some concerns, or Jason Skeels. Do you remember that? You're muted, I'm sorry.
I personally was about to get to that the next,
Oh, okay.
but I'll wait for Chris to reply.
I was just going to say that I think the way the drawing is drawn isn't accurate in terms of where these things are. So the fear that the blocks will block either the trash or the tight tank is not really realized, because the items are in a different location. I think that's what I wanted to say.
So the concerns that were brought up by looking at the drawing are not actually still relevant because the drawing was inaccurate.
That's right. Mhm.
All right, so you haven't really, so no one has any particular concerns with the operation of the facility on the basis of the block locations on the ground.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Johanna.
Thanks. Two thoughts. I went back and looked at the map from our previous hearing of this, and it seems like everything past the crosswalk is private property. So one thought is, I mean, I like the idea of distinguishing these blocks as more, like I like the red and white stripe idea, but then I also wonder whether a private property sign wouldn't be appropriate to help deter people from parking there and kind of thinking, oh, this is just
Right.
an extension of the road.
Right.
And then my second question is, how do you, or have you, or do you plan to handle snow plowing with these blocks in place?
Mr. Gerfine?
Oh, I don't think snow plowing is going to be, I mean, the ones in the street there they're about 20 feet apart. Those are not in a place where they're going to hinder any traffic. I place them very wide apart, and I place them to the side. I didn't want to make it too tight. There's many reasons for that. Obviously, it's much safer. Let's say someone does veer in there. There's not a very likely chance they're going to hit those blocks because they're so wide apart. And most of the road is actually clear if you look at it. So that was one reason. They're kind of casually placed there on the sides. They're not right in, they're not tight. Also, for fire truck allowance is 10 foot or 9'6". Those are about 20 feet apart. What was the other issue that was brought up? Just to go over, just to make sure the town is aware that the blocks are not on top of the tank. First of all, the tank could take the weight of the blocks on it because it's an industrial tank. It needed to be made to certain specifications because it's industrial, et cetera, with the flange. Those blocks are not on the tank, and the DEP is aware of those blocks. And they actually, like I said last time, they actually like the fact that those blocks are there because they feel that the Jersey barriers are protecting the tank from being driven on. Okay, you know, the tank for the runoff water from the greenhouse. There's no issue if it's not hindering the garbage or anything like that. I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Was there another issue that I'm sorry, that Johanna had brought up that I missed, that I didn't?
No, I think you've addressed.
Okay.
Johanna?
I guess I'm still a little bit confused about the snow plowing. So you're saying.
Oh,
the
right, I'm
plowing
sorry,
is
right.
between
Okay.
the
Right.
blocks.
No, I don't think it should be an issue. I mean, I have a tractor, a small tractor with a snowplow. I have a small little hand unit as well that I could easily get around those blocks. Oh, you're saying to clear it out to make sure they're visible. Is that what you're saying? Oh, yeah, gotcha. Okay, yeah. I will make sure that those are cleared out so the red and white is showing if there's snow, et cetera. I hear what you're saying. Yes, it's a very good point. Yes. I didn't understand what you meant at first with the clearing and all that. I was like, well, why does it matter? Now I understand. I understand what you're saying. Yes, absolutely. That's another reason for the stakes that you see that are 4 feet high with the reflectors. Those are a backup in case, let's say it's the middle of the night, I'm not there to plow it and there's a snow drift, you know, obviously that's why those tall reflectors are there to be. But yes, no, a point taken. Yes, that was a very good point.
All right, so board members, are you satisfied with the condition that's out there? And should we consider this de minimis and let it go? I'm seeing one head shake, yes. Tom?
The alternative is to create a public hearing.
Yeah.
To hold
a public hearing and probably require a revised site plan to be submitted and approved.
Well, just so if I may, I mean, not to split hairs, but just so the town is aware before they even bother with a hearing, that Mr. Hall might have an objection to this. Well, he may or may not, I don't know. But just so we're clear, once anyone goes in Hall Drive, that's private property. And this is something that I clarified with Chris. That's why the town works department said to me verbatim, not verbatim exactly, but in a sense, it's private property. You can do what you want. Hall Drive is a private street. And so that whole property, everything there is totally private. It's not even a public domain at all. Is there public access? Yes. It is not by any means public. From once you leave Route 9 or Belchertown Road, once you turn onto Hall Drive, that all is a private road that it's owned by Gordon Hall.
Okay, and so.
And then I'm just letting you know, I mean, you know, just in the issue of public hearing, I mean, I don't know legalities and I'm not trying to argue with the town. I'm just letting you know, so you should be aware ahead of time that everything in there is private property. I don't know that it constitutes or even the issue of a public hearing to be, you know, legitimate in that sense.
All right, thank you. Let's hear what Chris has to say.
So Janet McGowan brought this to our attention, and I think her main concern was safety. So if we solve the safety issue, I think she would be satisfied. The building inspectors have another issue, which is that the site is now different from the way it was approved by the planning board. And the planning board did know that Mr. Gerfine had the intention of putting blocks in the driveway because he said that at the meeting. He didn't show it on the plan, but he said it at the meeting. But the blocks inside of the fence weren't approved by the planning board. So, and they weren't mentioned at the meeting. So, so the building inspectors are saying, well, they weren't on the plan, they weren't approved. So you have an opportunity to say, it's okay, it's whatever, that, you know, the blocks inside and the blocks outside, you consider them de minimis. Or the alternative is to make Mr. Gerfine remove the blocks, particularly the ones inside the fence. As I said, I think the ones outside the fence were discussed in the public meeting last time, public hearing last time. So you could insist that he remove the ones inside the fence, or you could just say it's de minimis and you approve it.
Well, isn't there a third option, which is that we say that we want him to submit an accurate site plan that we can approve?
Mhm.
Tom,
That was gonna be my question, whether or not it would be valuable for the town to have an accurate site plan based on the conditions that exist at the moment, and whether that's something we should approve or not.
Chris?
I think that's going to be a challenge to get an accurate site plan because you would have to ask Mr. Gerfine to hire the person that he hired initially to put his site plan together and to add those blocks to the plan, but you could do that, and maybe Mr. Gerfine would accommodate you.
Mr. Gerfine, would you be open to having your surveyor add these blocks to your site plan? And
It's easier to remove them. Are you kidding me? Have you had any idea what it's been to deal with contractors, engineers, and surveyors after COVID? I'd rather jump off the George Washington Bridge. Are you kidding me? I'd rather remove the blocks. Are you joking? You have no idea.
No,
that-
I don't know whether you can
I
see our
don't know.
faces,
I'm
but we are
just-
not joking.
I'm just, are you kidding? Dealing with these people, I wouldn't even think of calling any of these people again. I'm not kidding. I'm not
All
kidding.
right, thank you.
The effort and the money and time to deal with these people.
So you'd rather remove the blocks?
Okay, so just so we're clear, what I was going to suggest is if anyone from the council wanted to go down there at any time, they're more than welcome to look around and examine it rather than just say remove them, they're not appropriate. The fence is not locked right now for various reasons, for contractors coming and going. The building is locked, but the gate to get in is not locked, and everyone from the town is more than welcome to go in there and look around, and they could see that there's about 6 feet between the blocks. So there's more than ample space to people to walk around, to grass to get mowed, for fire personnel to get there.
We're not worried about
Right,
that being a problem.
so what is the town's concern?
The town's concern is we don't have an accurate drawing for your property.
Right, so
So you
how-
either need to make your property conform to your drawing that was approved,
right,
or you need to get a new drawing that reflects what is now there.
so what if I just take an original drawing and have whomever, I mean, if I have someone, an architect or someone licensed depict the markings, I'm not going to use the same people that I used in the past. They were just a nightmare.
Okay.
I could use Kuhn Riddle, who I still use and have used in the past.
Well, that might be satisfactory. Let's talk about that. Nate, what would you like to say?
Well, I guess my thought would be if maybe the planning board would first determine if it's de minimis, and that way, there doesn't really need to be a new site plan submitted, right? I mean, Chris, I mean, we could have just the annotated drawing. I was thinking that a new site plan would be a product of a new hearing. But if the board determines that it's de minimis, then do we really need to have a new scale drawing of the site?
Well, yeah, I guess I was going off of Chris's suggestion that folks in the building department were unhappy to have an inaccurate drawing.
I think that they just noted when they were there for an inspection that the site wasn't the same as the plans they were looking at. So it could be that the planning board determines these changes are de minimis and it doesn't need a new site plan. And I think that would satisfy the inspectors.
Okay,
I think so too. Yep.
all right. So on that basis, Tom,
I believe that these are de minimis, but I would like to see them better marked. And I think the red and white stripes would be a valuable addition.
Yeah, that's I was gonna do, absolutely.
okay. Karen? Karen, you are muted.
Sorry. I agree. I think they're de minimis. I think I recall that they were put there for safety so that somebody doesn't run into the building. But I do think that it would be, even just a sign that says this is a private property, please do not enter, is preferable to a concrete block with a little stick and a reflector on it. It's less confusing and aesthetically it's better. So I really urge you to think about, somehow changing that or marking it in some way. That's my opinion. Thank you.
All right, so we have two members who are in favor of considering it de minimis. De minimis. Johanna, what about you?
I am inclined to go that way too.
All right. Chris, do we need to have a formal vote on this?
I think that would be good. Yep.
All right. Let's see, Karen was interested in a sign that said private property, and Tom was interested in red and white stripes on the blocks. Do we want to have a motion about de minimis and then some with or without some of these other requests, I guess? Tom?
I would just want to comment that I think Johanna also mentioned that at some place, a private property sign, whether it's there or further
Okay,
up the
so we've
road,
got two
would be-
votes for private property.
So I'm on board. I would move to say that this is de minimis with the addition of a private property sign, either at the edge of his property or at the location of those particular concrete blocks.
All right,
Currently, there's actually one on the gate itself. There's a private property with surveillance, et cetera, on the gate, the slide gate. But by all means, I'll put, I can affix them to the posts, which are high up, that have the reflectors. I can post.
yeah, it sounds like we'd like to see the private property sign closer to the street so that it's
Well,
more
that's
vis-
what I meant. Right. That's what I meant on those, the exterior 2 blocks. Yeah.
Good, sounds like we're on the same page. Tom, so you made a motion. Anybody want to second that? Johanna,
Can I second with an amendment that the blocks also get painted with the red and white stripes?
sure. Look, Tom, you accept the friendly amendment?
Yes.
So we would vote, 1, that we consider it de minimis. 2, that we would like at least one additional private property sign closer to the street. And 3, that the side of the blocks facing the street be painted with red and white or some sort of high visibility, maybe even reflective paint, so that it's clear that they are there. Does that sound correct, Johanna and Tom? I'm seeing thumbs up from both of you. Okay, so we have a second and we have a motion and a second. We will vote on that. All right, Bruce is now absent, so Tom.
Aye.
All right, and Johanna?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that's 4 in favor, 3 absences. And so Mr. Gerfine, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
And we would very much like for you to add the private property sign out closer to the street and to paint the front of your blocks.
I will make that a priority. I will not be able to get to it tomorrow. Hopefully over the weekend, I'll be able to get to it.
Well, make sure you do it when it's warm enough that your paint will properly
Yes.
adhere to the blocks. So if it doesn't happen until warmer weather, I think we will probably be okay with that.
Right, no, I think there'll be warm enough weather during the midday to, use an exterior paint that should hold on to that. Right.
All right.
But yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so the time is 9:10. And the next item, let's see, do we have any additional old business not anticipated 48 hours in advance?
No,
All right. Topic number 5, new business. Any new topics not anticipated?
no.
I see there's a second new business, which is East Amherst Village Center Planning and Zoning. Chris, what did you want to say about that?
A few people who were on the site visit at 20 Belchertown Road began talking about the need to plan and look at the zoning for the whole East Amherst Village Center. And this is a topic that has come up before. In fact, Janet brought it up a few times. She lives near there. I think it is a good idea to look at the East Amherst Village Center, and a proposal was made internally recently to perhaps ask for some money for an out year, not for FY24, but probably for FY25 to look, maybe get some money to help us to look at the whole East Amherst Village Center, which depending on your point of view, could go all the way from where the Amherst Media used to be in the old electrical building, all the way up to Maplewood Farms. So it's a big area, but I think there is a need to look at that. Short of doing a whole public process on East Amherst Village Center, I think there may be some smaller rezonings that might come before you, but I'm not actually ready to talk about those yet.
Okay.
This is a topic for the future, and several people had mentioned it at the site visit, so I thought it might be a good idea if we kind of kept it on our agenda and talked about it frequently. Okay.
All right. So this is kind of a placeholder item. You want to just leave on the agenda for us to check in with you about it every 2 weeks?
I think that's right. Yep, for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to jump in, Doug. I mean, the housing production plan, which is now almost 10 years old, they looked at East Amherst, and they had said that some of those buildings along Route 9 could be redeveloped, but the zoning wouldn't allow it. And so, even then there was some consideration whether or not the commercial zoning was appropriate, or could it be changed. And so, it could go even, as far north as like the JCA, right? So, up on Main Street. So, yeah, I think it's something that the planning department had considered looking at, that East Village for rezoning. There's been some redevelopment there, so there's interest in that area. We have the Wayfinders project on the East Street School site in Belchertown Road, and so there is some activity happening there. There's the Fort River School, so it could be a relevant time to look at that area.
Okay. Well, I would be in favor of that. All right, moving on. The time is 9:14. Item 6 on our agenda, Form A&R subdivision applications. Do we have any coming up?
There is if Pam wants to bring it up and show it to us, I can explain it.
All right.
And I think there's a member in the audience is here as well.
Is this Tim A?
Mhm.
Tim,
All right.
yeah, so this is the South Middle Street subdivision. South Middle Street was a cluster subdivision. It's on the opposite side of Bay Road from the old-fashioned Middle Street. It's a new subdivision road, but it's a private subdivision road. It's not ever going to become public. It's got, it has design issues that do not allow it to become public. But in any event, the developer, Tofino Associates, currently owns this area shown in yellow, and it is the open space for the cluster subdivision. And Tofino wants to carve out a triangular section, and it shows up on this plan here, out of the open space and sell it to the adjacent property of Lot 6. And at first we thought that this might have to go through subdivision approval because it is changing the subdivision. But then we went and looked at the requirements for a cluster subdivision, and we realized that there's a lot more open space here than is actually needed. The way you figure out what the size of the open space for a cluster subdivision is that you, for a cluster, you reduce the size of the lot area for, I think it's 50% of the lots. And you take the number by which those lots are reduced, and you add those numbers together, and you come up with the minimum size for the open space. And this cluster has over 500,000 square feet of open space, and it's only required to have something like 232,000. So Rob Mara and I talked about this and decided that rather than having them go through the whole, amendment of a subdivision, that really wasn't necessary. But since this was a cluster subdivision is required to have site plan approval for cluster. So this did go through that process. So, but rather than bringing this back to you as a, full-blown site plan review application, Rob came up with the idea of approving this, since it's such a minor thing and it's not really having much of an impact on the open space. He could approve this by administrative approval, which you've become familiar with recently as a result of the food and drink zoning amendment. So that's what we have determined, is that we've asked the developer to request administrative approval, and he's done that. And he's currently working with Jen Mullins in our office to get that administrative approval, which covers the site plan review for cluster aspect of this. We don't think this really needs to go through subdivision control process. So we're asking you to approve this as an A&R, or authorize the chair to sign this as an A&R. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess everything you said was comprehensible. But I guess I don't understand how, when did we give, or, is it clear that Rob really has the administrative authority to do this approval? And,
Under site plan review,
we had a lot of conversation about administrative approval when we got into the food and drink, and it didn't sound like something we did very often, or, so I'm just surprised that is the case.
I do not have my zoning bylaw with me, but if Nate has his, he might be able to read. I think it's 11.214 or something like that.
Oh, I have it.
Oh,
Yeah, I was getting there as well.
11.2124.
214, Nate. Is it 212? It's
2-1, yeah, where is it? It's 214 is administrative approval for minor alterations to building, exterior or site.
Okay. Yep, the building commissioner may authorize work to proceed without site plan review for minor alterations, provided the following criteria are satisfied. The proposed alteration shall not violate any provision of this bylaw. The proposed alteration does not result in an expansion of the building footprint other than those required by the building code related to means of egress or accessibility. The proposed alteration does not change the height or roof lines of any building. The proposal does not result in any substantial change in lot coverage, which that one might be an issue. The applicant demonstrates that the proposal does not increase the volume or rate of stormwater runoff, and measures are taken to avoid any excessive noise, odor, dust, vibration, flood, light pollution, or visual impact resulting from the proposed alteration. So it would change the lot coverage of lot 6, right?
It would make it less less apt to be against the bylaw. In other words, it would expand the lot, so you would have more area.
Right,
to-
and so in fact, lot 6 could build more than it currently can build.
I suppose that's true, but the lot itself is really big. It's 1.274 acres, so you'd have to have a pretty big house to be confronting whatever the lot coverage requirement is. And you could probably figure that out, one of you, by looking at table 3. What is the lot coverage allowed in, this would be the RLD zoning district? Something tells me it's 15%, but I'm not sure about that.
It is 15%, and building coverage is 10.
So what might be the motivation for this transaction?
I think the person who owns lot 6 just wants a bigger lot. Probably to, just not have anybody, well, not have somebody else be in control of that parcel there. It is typical or common, I shouldn't say typical, it is common to change lot lines in a subdivision after the road is built. So that often happens via A&R. And in this case, we looked at this and we said, oh, who owns the open space right now? And at first we thought it was the homeowners association because that's what our GIS was showing. But then we went through a sort of a study and figured out and had an agreement with the assessor that it's not the homeowners association. It's actually South Middle Street Inc., which is controlled by Tofino Associates. And so Tofino is really another landowner in this subdivision. And by creating this lot, parcel A, out of the open space, they're really not deviating from any regulation. As I explained, there's already more than enough open space by a factor of, a few 100,000 square feet. So taking some of it and adding it to lot 6 didn't seem to be, deviating from any zoning requirements or anything. So
And also, just quickly, Doug, it looks like the if you look at topography, there's a if by doing this you have an easier access this way to the site to come off, something like this maybe, as opposed to coming off this frontage now. So looking at the topography on the GIS, acquiring this area would make it easier to get into the site to develop it.
Is lot 6 already developed or not?
No.
So it's a vacant lot.
Mhm.
Okay, Karen, I see your hand.
Yes, so I'm also questioning the motivation. Does this make it possible for Tofino then to have one large lot with a lot of frontage and then come back to us for subdividing this and just increasing the number of houses there? That's my question.
No, this would just make it one lot. So if they're, if, okay, so this, they wouldn't have, the lot doesn't become big enough to then put another roadway into it.
So thanks.
All right.
So the question is, do you authorize the chair of the planning board to sign this or to endorse this plan as not requiring subdivision control? They're not changing anything about the road.
Right. Well, does anybody, I guess, object to that? I'm seeing, looks like Tom and Karen are fine with that. They do not object. And Johanna is shaking her head likewise. So it sounds like we have consensus. Chris, I guess I'll need to make a time to come and sign the A&R.
Are you around next week?
I am.
So
I'm-
then we can make
I'm
an
more
appointment.
flexible than usual.
Okay, good. We'll make an appointment for next week. And Pam, would you remind me to do that when I get back to work?
Well,
I think early in the week is probably better than later in the week.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. So that concludes item 5, item 6 in our agenda. Time is 9:25. Upcoming ZBA applications. Anything to report?
I don't have anything new to report tonight.
Okay. Upcoming SPP, SPR, SUB applications.
Nothing new as far as I'm aware.
Okay. All right, item 9, planning board committee and liaison reports. Bruce has had to leave, and I haven't heard anything from Jack, so we'll skip the PVPC. Andrew is gone, so we'll skip the CPAC committee. Tom, anything on DRB?
Yeah, a couple of interesting, well, we had several approvals for signage downtown, new restaurant on Boltwood, in the back lot, and blade sign down on Pleasant Street. But one of the interesting things that came up was that the North Amherst Fire Station wanted to repaint or refinish a couple of the surfaces there and make them red instead of the white or cream color they were. And while aesthetically it made a lot of sense, there was a little bit of concern that that building might have some kind of historical relevance given its brutalist kind of thematic style, and that I was encouraging them to make sure that the historic commission took a look at it before we approved it. So we approved it pending the approval of the historic district or historic commission.
Okay.
That was all we had.
All right, I know that there's a group at UMass that's been pushing, trying to advocate for appreciation for all the brutalist buildings on our campus. So, Chris.
So that's a good thing for Nate and me to know, because Nate is taking over for Maureen Pollock. No, he's taking over for Ben Baker.
The commission, thanks, Chris. Yeah, the commission took it up. Actually, they met last week. It was on short notice. Maureen let me know that afternoon that took place. So the commission did have some questions about the material and color, and Jeremiah from the facilities department with the town is going to come to their January 11th meeting to discuss it a little bit more. So, the commission agreed that the building had, some relationship to the UMass campus, and, whether or not, the color or things could be changed. And so, I think that is an ongoing conversation.
Okay. All right, Janet's absent, so we'll skip the solar bylaw working group, unless, Chris, you have anything you can report?
I don't, not at this time. I didn't go to the last meeting.
Okay. And that leaves CRC. Chris, anything you want to pass along?
The CRC is still working on the rental registration bylaw, and they hope to have something soon in the new year to present to the town council and the rest of the town. So they're working hard on that.
And once they do that, it'll get referred to us to hold a public hearing?
I don't think so, because it's not a zoning bylaw.
Oh, right,
It's a
okay.
general bylaw. Yep.
Right, it's just a straightforward bylaw.
Yep. Mhm.
All right. All right.
quick update that, the council voted the food and drink establishment amendment. So the zoning amendment for 3.352 was approved, and that'll become effective in a few weeks. So
Were there changes made at the council level?
no, the CRC, after the planning board, they wanted to see a little bit more language, and we took one condition about the BN zoning district out of the use chart and put those in Article 5. So we said like there couldn't be outdoor dining in the BN district, and we have that in Article 5 accessory uses, so that they're there as opposed to the use chart. And there's one clarifying language that the applicant have, or the establishment have current certifications. The word current was inserted, so nothing major, just a little reworking there.
Just de minimis.
Yeah.
All right. I have nothing to report for the report of the chair, other than thank you for being on the board and supporting the board for this calendar year. And have a good break, and we'll see you in 2023. Chris,
You as
any
well, Doug.
report for
Thank you. You guys have a great holiday.
Yeah, we got Chris, did you want to report anything?
I wanted to report, and I don't, maybe Nate did this already, that the flood maps were approved.
Okay, yeah, I
After
was wondering.
10 years, they're finally approved, and we're going to be informing the state and FEMA about that, and they will become effective on February 9th. And I am particularly very excited about that. Maybe Nate's excited too. But the other thing I wanted to say, and I don't know if we've talked about this before, but we are currently down 2 staff members. We lost Ben in November, I think it was. And then yesterday was Maureen Pollock's last day with us. So we're really, we miss them. They were great staff people, and Pam and Nate and I are marching along as the planning department right now, and hoping to hire 2 new people. So
Have you got an ad? Have you posted an ad? Are there positions available?
there are positions available. So please tell all your friends and relatives.
All right.
And thank you to Pam and Nate for sticking with me.
Well,
Thank you, Pam and Nate and Chris.
All right, thank you all. All right, the time is 9:32. Unless anybody objects, I think we're adjourned, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you very much.
You guys,
Happy New Year.
happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, Pam.
Corey, sure you want to stop?
Recording stopped.
Good night, Mr. Marshall. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
See you in January.
Yep,
Okay, bye.
bye.